We're going.
We are live. Oh,
We're live.
I think I came in way too hot.
No, not nearly hot enough.
Oh, you think so? You don't think so?
No, I think you should go harder next time.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think we are live.
We're live now.
Like,
yeah.
We are live.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, what is going on with these weirdos? Why are they doing this? This is supposed to be about comics. Why are they just yelling at each other? Hello, everyone. Yeah, and we can share this like afterwards, and people be like, "Oh, let's watch this. This looks nice." Hello. Welcome to Comic Book Yeti's Yeti Live, and I have a fellow Yeti, Wells, the Real Deal Thompson, as he's known in many circle. This is going to be a little punchy, folks. So just if you're in early, great. Enjoy the ride. You're going to hear two old friends because we're old friends now, at least as far as the internet is concerned.
Well, we're certainly old.
Well, me much older than you. I mean, look at this. Look at this. I mean, I like that I have a head of hair, but I've said it before, but I'm like starting to turn into Wolfman Jack, which is a reference.
The salt and pepper is very much in though. Like, no, you got the zaddy thing going. You're good.
But all I can think of is like Wolfman Jack. It's like a reference that like nobody gets. At least at my office where folks are younger than me. So in any event, welcome everyone who is tuning in or will be tuning in to this Comic Book Yeti Live event with Wells, the Real Deal Thompson. And we're here to talk about the current Kickstarter of Wells Thompson, Dalton Shannon, Jay Shake, the rest of the creative team. We're going to hear all about Depths, which is currently on Kickstarter. As of right now, today is May 15th. It's going to be on Kickstarter, I think, for the next 15 days. So until one day more for 2 weeks.
31st.
And I mean, I can't wait to talk about this book. I love Jay's art first and foremost. So I can't wait to get into all of that. Jay's been on a friend of the podcast. I've heard other podcasts say it. I don't know if I've used that.
Friend of the pod. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll call Jay's a friend of the pod. He's been on, and I can't wait to talk about Depths. And I mean, the book looks great. It's like is this your most? Let's start here. Is this your most like I guess ambitious project in terms of like 112-page graphic novel?
Yes. Undoubtedly, yes. It depends on how you define it, I guess. It's not like the longest story that we have in the tank. That's probably Frankenstein the Unconquered is like the longest overall scope, but we're tackling that one issue at a time. That's a 20-page at a time kind of thing that will eventually evolve into like a 300-page epic. And this one, we're going right out of the gate, 112 pages. And then book 2 will be 112 pages, and that'll be the entire story. So 224 pages total. But yeah, no, this is definitely the most ambitious single campaign that we've done by an order of magnitude, just about.
Let's get into it in terms of the story. You have Emil, who is like a scientist, professor. 1930s. He builds a diving suit that he can just sustains him. Food, air. He gets trapped underwater. His co-scientist, best friend. Okay. Yes. His co-scientist, James, Harrigan, is on the lookout for him, seeing if he's still alive under the water in the murky depths. Look, I used the title in what I said, huh?
The title has been a gift to podcasters everywhere. Like the amount of water and ocean and depths based puns that we've heard on podcasts, above and beyond the magnitude of what we expected. So yes, I'm welcome.
really proud of the comics podcasting / pun community. That's exciting. But no, I mean, you can go on the Kickstarter and see what the story's about. But I want to hear from you. Like, what is it about this story in terms of you and Dalton working on it? Kind of what was like the genesis of it?
So when originally it was Dalton's idea, and we kind of formed it together. This was the first thing we ever worked on together. Dalton had graduated college, and he went to go live by himself for the first time in his life, away from his girlfriend, away from his family, away from friends. He wasn't like in he wasn't in a dorm or anything, or some place that he could be in constant contact with people. And it broke him. Like he didn't know how to live like that. He lasted about a month, and he called home and broke his lease and moved back in with his parents. And kind of in that sort of deep loneliness and feeling trapped, he came up with the idea of a guy gets stuck underwater in this suit that can sustain him, but he can't escape it. That idea kind of stuck around, and a couple of years after graduation, we're kind of longing to get back to a community having a partnership, having a writer community around you where you could workshop each other's stuff. And so
Sure.
we started trading stories, and he brought me the first issue of Depths, and he's like, I don't know what it is past this, but here's this thing. And I was like, I love the shit out of this. This is amazing. And I kind of saw it for what it was immediately. It's this harrowing story of survival, and it's also this metaphor about what it's like to live with grief and depression, and I've been that guy, and I knew it, and I am that guy to an extent, and I knew what it wanted to be more than maybe Dalton did at the time, and that's what brought us together to make the most out of it. And it's how I started writing comics, and in a real sense, why we're here today. Not just because it's a project running right now, but because it brought me into this whole ecosystem of indie comics and creating cool stuff with artists. It's a deeply personal story. It matters a lot to us. This idea of like living with isolation and trying to move past being in a really dark place speaks really clearly to us. So it's one that we've been wanting to tell for a while.
Yeah, I'm sure after the past, in particular the 3 years of the pandemic, it speaks to a lot of people, whether or not they felt
absolutely
isolated. Whether or not you suffer from anxiety or depression, which themselves can be very isolating, but especially the pandemic, and going through that period of time, or continuing to still go through that period of time and deal with that. Or there's a lot of aspects of it, even what you mentioned, like writing comics, or any type of profession where you feel like you don't have a community around you to help support you. But when Dalton came to you, like was it like the first chapter of this story that he had it written, or just had like the bones of it down?
So it was, he writes in a very in a way that I'm very jealous of, where he just spits it out. Like he just gets out the entire story if he can.
Well, that's unacceptable.
So like one of our other series is Frankenstein the Unconquered. Here it is, just to show.
There it is.
Yeah. And
we're live. It's not just the podcast.
Yeah,
so you can people can go on Twitter and see this, and visual
absolutely.
aids.
But yeah, this is one of my this is one of our books. I'm really proud of this book.
Right.
And Dalton is sort of the one taking point on it, which just means he comes up with the first draft, and then we pass it back and forth. But the way our other book, Mechaton, is the one I'm on point for, and I write it like one issue at a time. I try and get down what it is. I try and I have an outline for it, but I'm trying to figure out, okay, how did the process of writing this affect the outline? That way, I'm not getting ahead of myself and having to change stuff later on. Whereas Frankenstein the Unconquered, Dalton took a month off. Or like 3 weeks off, and I didn't hear from him at all. And then he just came back and said, "Hey, I have 13 issues," and I was like, fuck you, how about that? And they had to be like, they're like, we have to go back and change them a lot. Like we have to go, oh, okay, this maybe doesn't work, we have to kind of restructure this. Right. But like he has this ability to just spit it out. So he came to me, and he had I think there were 20 pages each, like 80 pages of script. The first issue is pretty close to what actually appears in the book. Like it has a very solid foundation. Even back then, it started off very strong, and then it just kind of like it didn't really know what it wanted to be, and it sort of dithered into nothing. And it took us coming together and really breaking it to say, oh, here's what it wants to be. Here's where this story is headed, to form it into something really cool. So yeah, he had like the first 20 to 28 pages that were totally done, and then a little bit extra that were like, this is salvageable in different bits. There are ideas here that are really good.
With a story like this that as you describe it, and as Dalton, if anyone goes to the Kickstarter page, there's like a 4-minute video or so where it's both Wells and Dalton talking about it. And with a story that's deeply personal like this, was it difficult, you coming in second, for Dalton to kind of like let you in if this was the first thing that you had ever written? Or worked
I'm sure it was
together? Are either of you precious about some of the things you write? Like, because with Depths, with Mechaton, with Frankenstein the Unconquered, and you had the horror anthology, Descent into Dread. Have there been any moments where either of you have gotten like precious about a scene or a line of dialogue? Is that tough to deal with, the way you split your writing duties?
We butt heads all the time, in a very friendly way, in like I don't want to say a competitive way, but like a way that we understand is like, this is going to help the book. Sometimes it is a little bit like someone has a strong opinion and isn't willing to back down, and we just kind of have to go back and forth. Hello to you, nerdy people. And
yes, hello, fellow nerds.
So we just got for the podcast, we just got a comment that said, hey, nerdy people. Yeah, so there are certainly times that we can be precious. The really good stuff we agree on. Whenever it's really good, we're like, yeah, 100%, we're keeping that. Great. Oh, this is really important to you. Well, it works, so let's keep it. Occasionally there's something that isn't quite working, and the other one just has to be like, this is why. And we have enough respect for each other that even it's like, okay, I thought it was really cool, but it's clearly not working. So let's shelve it for now, and we can probably bring it back. If not in this book, at least somewhere else. And the stuff that we're really precious about, like the stories that we want to tell that are like, ours, and we aren't willing to compromise on, we usually just don't bring to each other, except on like a friendly sort of, hey, will you look this over kind of thing, not a co-writer kind of thing. And there are stories like that. I have a whole novel that I've written that I love getting feedback on, but I would never share like as a co-writer with anybody. That's mine. And I'm sure it was strange for Dalton to kind of break into that, but also I think Dalton knew, just as I did, that we weren't getting anywhere on our own, and that we needed, someone to cover our bases, cover our weaknesses, if we were going to get anywhere in this industry. Not just comics, but like creative industry in general. It's such a hostile field. It's such an overwhelming prospect to break into that you need someone to watch your back. So.
Yeah, and I mean, in the limited time I've, been around with Comic Book Yeti and, on Twitter in terms of the indie comics like scene there, the advice about breaking into comics, the way to break into comics is to make comics. And certainly to an extent though, that's true. Like you can,
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You have the funds, you can make a comic, you can write a story, you can hire an artist. If you're not an artist yourself, you can, pay someone to color it, to letter it, put it all together, and you can do that. But I really think the thing is, when you talk about the idea of like breaking into comics, like is to make comics, yes, but the second piece of that is like, how do I break into comics and like have that in my career? Like that's like the key part, right? Like it can be a very expensive hobby if you want it to be, or a creative outlet. If you don't like calling it a hobby, it can be a creative outlet for you to make them. But it's like, how do I break into comics and like so that it can sustain me? That is the much harder part, where I think it does help to have a community around you. and someone watching your
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, for sure. Undoubtedly. Um, yeah,
So,
it's a very strange little business that we have.
yeah, and I mean, I still don't, just following it for the past few years, I still don't understand all the, the ins and outs of it, and
Mhm,
I try my best to understand in terms of, indie comics and crowdfunding and the direct market and
mhm.
everything that's happened, over the pandemic, which we could have like a whole Yeti live series about like different guests on and going from Diamond to, different publishers going to different outlets
Oh,
and how that works, and
there's
like,
so many facets
right.
of the
does the
machine.
does the final order cutoff system still make sense? We could we could do all of that.
Yeah.
But no, back to this in terms of depths. If this was the first thing you started working on, I mean, for
Mhm,
anyone that doesn't know, you've had success with crowdfunding campaigns. You've had Mechaton
mhm.
and the already mentioned Frankenstein the Unconquered, both excellent comics, both very different in tone and look. Um, both wonderful for different reasons. So what
Mhm.
was the reason that like you went with those first in terms of getting them out there rather than this? Is it just because this is a longer project, because it was a bigger funding goal? Was there like a practical reason behind it?
There's a little bit of everything. So it's a longer project, and at least I've always seen it as one cohesive graphic novel. Dalton always said that he wanted it in floppies because he's always been a comic guy. I have always been a novel and short story and prose guy, so I saw this as a graphic novel. That was something I could conceptualize.
Right. Okay.
Um, so I wanted it out all at once if I could help it, if I could make that happen. And we knew that that was a bit too big and ambitious to bring to Kickstarter, for our first thing. And we knew that if we were paying for it on our own, it would take years and we'd have to break into a lot more personal savings than we did for example, Descent into Dread, which was our first published book. It's a horror book, and as you can see, it's black and white. About 100 pages, and it was not cheap. And even we didn't pay the most for the book or anything, but it was still it was not the cheapest to make. So just based on that, we were like, already, for the quality that we want depths to be, the consistency and the fact that we wanted it in color, and like we knew it was just going to absolutely eat us alive if we tried to do it ourselves. The other thing was, and I don't know how to say this without like denigrating my other stories, or on the other hand, like sounding arrogant. But we knew that Depths was special. We knew it was gonna be a really big, important story, and we didn't want to fuck it up. We didn't
Okay.
want we wanted to, like, not that and we love Mechaton, we love what it's grown into, but like we knew that that was an idea that if it goes well, great, and if it falls on its face, I can live with that. It's fun. We got the experience in. We made a book that we can be proud of, or not, but we got the experience making a book, and hopefully people will connect to it. If we put out Depths and the art wasn't right and we didn't know what we were doing, and it turned out that it wasn't the story that was bad, it was just the everything else around it that was bad, that would kind of crush us. So we wanted to make sure that we knew how the industry worked and how to get it out there before we tried. Um, so yeah, and then the other thing was, like, subject matter wise, it's a lot easier to sell people on something that's a little bit more lighthearted, or like horror, or like very action oriented, than it is something that is sort of more introspective, and I guess if you really want to stretch it, you could say that Depths is like a survival adventure book, with some sci-fi elements, but it's in all honesty, it's more of like an existential character piece, and people love those, but they're hard to sell in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, they're the things that folks might remember or talk about,
Yeah,
afterwards, or that might reach people in a certain way. But yeah, it's hard to pitch, right?
yeah.
Is part of it too. Like if somebody says, "Hey, Jimmy, like I need like a fun all ages comic. And I'm like, oh, Mechaton. These like siblings find like a glove, and whatever they punch with it turns into like a giant mech, and they have to fight like big bugs. And you're like, what?
Hell yeah.
Give me that. Or like Frankenstein the Unconquered. And it's like, well, what is that about? Well, like Frankenstein, he's like, you know, this monster. He's been around for a while, and he like wakes up, and it's like way later, and he's super pissed, and he's like gonna kill some stuff, and it's pretty cool. There's a lot of other stuff, but like that basic premise, you're like, yeah, okay, sign me up.
Yeah, which like man survives underwater for 3 years is an interesting premise. I do see people being like, oh, that's cool, I get that. At the same time, it's not as inherently exciting, and you know, you have to build it. You have to sort of build it in a certain way. So we wanted to have some sort of reliable readership before we tried to get it out there.
Right. You want to have some trust knowing that like a story that you and Dalton are going to craft, when you look at the other work that you've done, and if you're pouring everything in terms of a very personal story that, yes, does guy's trapped underwater in a suit that can sustain him, and his friend is on land, and he doesn't know if he's alive or dead, feels guilty, trying to figure it out. Take that interesting premise, but to sustain it over like a 112-page graphic novel, you know that the two of you are pouring everything you have in it. There's some trust already built in terms of, well, the other stuff that they've written is great, and I think that them pouring everything into a story about is really, you know, about someone dealing with grief and anxiety and depression. I get it, and I love the premise. I love the artwork, which I want to talk about how the creative team came together. We have a question. Can we take questions? Let's take questions.
We can take questions. Sure.
Sure. Ace, do you find it easier to crowdfund when it's a character like Frankenstein that people are already familiar with, or when it's your own characters? Wells, the real deal Thompson with the heat. Let's go.
100%. Yeah, no. I think we are in an age where people are complaining a lot about rehashes and reboots and sequels and just like they want something original, or they claim to want something original, and then you make something original and no one pays attention to it, and then you make Frankenstein the Unconquered, which is an original take from a classic character, and the difference is night and day. One thing that I notice on all of our campaigns is that Frankenstein brings by far the highest percentage of new backers, of people who have never backed our campaigns before. It's a recognizable title. People hear it and they know at least one part of it. Frankenstein the Unconquered, what does that mean? They click the page, they try and they piece together what it is, and by the time they get to the end of it, they either see that they like the story or they like the flops cover, and one of the two is going to sell. The flops cover was our not safe for work cover, which was the other element of why Frankenstein the Unconquered was extremely successful. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that necessarily, but yeah, in an attention economy, which is kind of what we're running right now, name recognition matters. So, as much as I would love to say that, people are more interested in, the original characters and the new ideas and I think it's much more attention grabbing to introduce something that's already a little bit familiar. Which is, already why, in every review you've ever seen of a comic or a movie or whatever, they'll immediately, the meme is like, it's the Dark Souls of blank. This new game is the Dark Souls of blank. This is the new game is the Breath of the Wild of first person shooters. And the reason they do that comparison is because it is so much easier to get people's attention when you're like, hey, this thing that you like, it's like that. So yeah, no, it's a lot easier when you have, and that wasn't even like intentional. We didn't do that as a cash grab or anything. We just did it because I'm a literature nerd and I love Frankenstein's monster, and I wanted to work with Dalton on something that was cool. and what it wound up being. But we kind of stumbled into that situation. So yeah,
nice. All right. Well, thanks for the question, Ace.
Yeah, appreciate you.
Oh, this is fun,
isn't it? Though?
It is. So just turning, I want to talk about the creative team, but 1 second, because going through the Kickstarter campaign for anyone that hasn't done it yet, and since we have the visual in terms of Twitter, I just want to show this because I just love this. And I think you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but it did. I think Fernando Pinto, who's the artist on Mechaton, did this.
Yeah. Yes.
If I can just,
I know what you're talking about already.
This is Douglas, and I'm trying to hold it up so you can see. You can get a sticker or an enamel pin, and it says Douglas believes in you, and he looks like he does. Talk to me real quick about Douglas.
Douglas is a giant Pacific octopus that has been lost in the Atlantic Ocean. He finds, at some point in Emil's 3-year journey, they find each other, and they stick together. He's like a Labrador Retriever. He's just happy. I'm gonna share screen so we can get a
what
whoop,
we
so
can
do
that.
Visual of this. Yeah, you can do that.
I had to hold mine up.
Cool. There you go. Are you seeing it? Yeah. No. Am I? No. Okay. Never mind. Oh, here it is.
I did that. I added it.
There we are.
There we go. I did it. Douglas believes in you.
Yeah, no, so that's a clearer picture of Douglas the octopus.
Sure is.
And then
I love that.
up here, sorry, is a bit of space between there and the official drawing of Douglas with his little martini glass that Jay Sheik did for us. Yeah. Yeah, no, so we the idea of being trapped underwater is both harrowing and interesting in sort of a wide adventure sense. It's also very, it's challenging to create situations where you can have a character show their personality, because if they don't have a reason to talk, if they don't have a reason to react to something, they come across as sort of robotic. So we wanted to give him a companion. We wanted to give him something to talk to, and we thought, let's make a little companion for him. Let's make a little octopus. And Douglas wound up turning into kind of like the bright spot in Emil's life, the thing he can look forward to every day. I get to go back home to Douglas. So the story behind the pin, the very stylized, cartoony drawing of Douglas is, this is a book that deals with some heavy subject matter, and we wanted something that was just like unambiguously positive to sort of give to people, aside from just the book. So we made that sticker and enamel pin for people to enjoy as a part of the experience.
Nice. Yeah, I really like it. And I mean, I think it is Fernando, right?
Yeah, it's Nando. Yeah, which is another thing. We love our cross promotions. He's our artist on Mechaton, so we figured fans of Mechaton could get a kick out of that. And fans of Frankenstein the Unconquered, our hardcover is drawn by Heather Vaughn, who does our regular A covers for Frankenstein the Unconquered. So this, for example, is her art on there. And it's also the art for the hardcover, which is one of my favorite pieces of art in the entire campaign.
And shout out to Heather, who I'm pretty sure is a Philly native. So
yes,
is in Philly now.
Proudly Philadelphia. I love following them on Twitter because they are completely unhinged. Everything that they say is just like, yes, this is the Twitter equivalent of a bare knuckle fight in the street.
Right. Well, we're currently working on a Philly Comics Scrapple meetup. We're all going to go and have Scrapple. So, anybody else in the Philly area, we should promote it. Just a bunch of comics people just hanging out and having Scrapple, having a good time.
Love that.
Because I love Scrapple.
Yeah.
Regardless of what Grant Stoy says. I don't know if you know Grant.
Oh, I know Grant.
Grant, do you? Does anybody really?
Does anyone know? Does anyone truly know Grant?
Does anyone really? Does Grant know Grant?
I don't think Grant knows Grant.
Oh, he
I
told
know.
me to tell you hi. I told him I was going to talk to you. He said,
Oh,
"Say hi."
wonderful! No, I love Grant. I think Grant's a great guy. I know he's your nemesis, but I do. He introduced
It's
me to Brenda Snellvey, who is my designer for all of my logos and designed the Kickstarter page. So when you go there and you're scrolling down and you think, oh, this is really well laid out. This looks beautiful. That's all Brenda. I'm very visually impaired, so the fact that she was able to put that together, I give her all the credit in the world for. But
well, speaking of Brenda, and it's a good segue into the rest of the creative team. We'll get back to our Grant cast later, where we just make fun of
we
Grant's
roast Grant,
story, where
absolutely.
we just roast Grant, where we talk about how much we love SideQuest, but we dislike Grant on a
you know what I hate
deeply
about
personal
SideQuest? Yeah.
level.
You know what I hate about SideQuest? Supporting Grant's story.
It's a real bummer that I want to read it. All right, but back to Depths. So you, Dalton, we've already covered.
Yes.
All right, and so how did?
And there's no more interesting ground to cover there. Let's be clear.
Yeah, that's just. So let's talk about Jay and colorist Rajesh Kumar and a letterer that you've worked with. I think is
Yes.
Nathan
Yeah,
Kemp.
Nathan.
Yeah, I've worked with Nathan. Nathan's great.
Nathan's wonderful. I love
Yes.
Nathan. They works on more. I don't think they're working on everything that I'm doing, but that they have worked on most things. They worked on they're the letterer for Mechaton, they're the letterer for Frankenstein the Unconquered. They're lettering this, obviously. They did a couple short stories. My From the Static story, Nathan lettered. So yeah, we're very familiar at this point.
Right.
And he's such a chameleon. They do such a good job just like hiding their work in plain sight. Between Mechaton and Frankenstein and Depths, you look between those three and you would never guess it's the same person. They're all such radically different lettering styles. But he's just so good at like kind of matching whatever he needs to do to tell the story correctly. I love working with Nathan for that. He has such a good eye for making a story work.
Yeah, I looked at the preview the pages that are on Kickstarter for Depths in terms of that, because it's a 1930s and it's like got a very journal type of feel, and comparing it to like the lettering in Mechaton, which is just very different on every level from that type
very
of story.
Modern and very modern, very loud, very bombastic. Then Frankenstein has like the narration has a similar kind of journal style to it, but it's almost like pages being ripped out of a journal. There's a sort of frantic pace to the narration that lends itself to the brutality in the book. But Depths is much more like a reflection, and I think he sort of matches that energy. And then the dialogue, which reads completely differently. I wonder how much of part of it is just there's a lot of it. A part of this being our first book, there's a lot of words on the page. We learned to cut that shit down as we went.
Right.
We learned to do better. But Nathan is a champ, and he's willing to roll with the punches. That square balloon I think is just more space efficient for the amount of dialogue and narration that we have. But it looks, it gives it a distinct edge. It looks very unique. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so how did Jay get involved?
Oh, I reached out to Jay for sure. I've been a fan of his style for a really long time.
Yeah, I really like Jay's work too.
Yeah, I was gonna work with him on Big Hype Volume 3, and unfortunately that project wound up falling through. Here's shouting out to Doug Wood. Hope he's doing okay.
Yeah, I love Doug too.
Doug's a great guy. He had to drop comics for at least for a little bit, and we all hope that he's doing all right.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, his style shouted out to me as like something that was very grounded and heavy with character acting, and just something that I felt he could bring a story like this to life. and I, I spoke with him about it, and I told him the premise, and he recognized right away, like, oh, this is a really cool idea, and this seems like something that you're really ride or die for. And frankly, he was like, this is the kind of story that I want to draw more of, is like, people's the story that people are like really passionate about is like the thing I want to dedicate my time to, especially if it's this long, like if I'm going to be doing it for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, he right away saw sort of the potential of the story and wanted to be a part of it, which is fantastic. And then he introduced us to Rajesh, who is our colorist for this, which is a colorist that he's worked with before. They have really good chemistry together. Rajesh knows how to color Jay's inks, and Jay has this like deep inky black style, and then Rajesh turns into this like very claustrophobic blue for the underwater scenes. That it makes it feel very isolating and like you couldn't see 3 feet in front of you, and I love it. I think it works really well.
Yeah, I think coloring, I mean, having read a couple of different, like just thinking of different comics that take place underwater and thinking back to them and like how they're colored, I think there can be a tendency to sometimes make things too dark. Looking at the preview pages for depths, I like the kind of murky blue. It wasn't quite black. Emil in the suit always there was like it was lighter in terms of the coloring around. You could always see
and that was that sort of
aspect to it, so it wasn't too, my old eyes weren't like straining.
And that was definitely by design. There's a light source on his head, so he constantly has this kind of glow around him that makes him very easy to identify in the page. And that was, we wanted to make sure that was the case, because you don't really have natural sunlight. You don't have as much ambient light down there. So we needed a constant source of like, he can see and everything can see him.
Right.
Otherwise, it was going to be a very unpleasant viewing experience.
Yeah, but I mean, still, there you could do different things with that, like how it looks on the page makes sense, and that character always stands out. And I just think it looks really cool. I really like it. I really like the blue tones in it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this, sorry if you're hearing the sirens right now, they're passing by.
Are they coming to get you? You need a lawyer.
We both know
don't
you're not the kind
say
of
a word.
Don't say a word.
Well, not now. I do personal injury, but I used to do criminal defense. I did that for a number of years. That's so good. I don't do it anymore, but I did. Jack of all trades, master of none. Anyway.
No, this book, you know how your first project is always stupidly ambitious. So I sort of am being half sincere when I'm like, it's a 224 page total. It's book 1, book 2, and then that's the whole story. And that is true, but it's also conceptually part of like a much larger series of books that don't necessarily involve the same characters, but thematically link. So it's more like a 900 page, epic over 4 books. And the way we sort of themes them out is CMYK. So cyan, magenta, yellow, black. And this is cyan. This is the blue book. So we knew as a part of sort of the visual language of it that this was going to be an aggressively blue looking book.
Wow.
And we wanted a colorist that could like do interesting things with that. And Rajesh fits the bill really well.
900 page epic. Yeah, that's a little.
I mean, you don't necessarily bring that, but I mean, and it's 4 distinct stories and 4 very 4 whole graphic novels, but like they are together. If you smush them together, you go, oh, I see where it was all going. Kind of a Cloud Atlas effect, but like 90% less pretentious.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I love it. I mean, swing for the fences. I mean, what's the point 100%. Otherwise? Tell the story that you want to tell. All right, we have another question.
What's up?
DNick7. What happens with projects that do not reach funding? Is there a life after? And also, what's your favorite board game?
Oh boy,
2-parter.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's a great question. I am so lucky in that I have never had a book fail on Kickstarter. Uh, and I really hope to not find out. Uh,
Yeah, that's
ultimately, you know, if my luck runs out, this is an ambitious project. We knew that there was risk going into it. If we don't hit funding this time, oh, it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt bad, but ultimately, I will recover. Um, yeah, I think we definitely will find a way to tell this story one way or another. If we have to wait longer to tell it, it's gonna sting. But I think there will be life afterward for sure. And maybe it means we go back to doing the individual issues, so it's 28 pages a pop, and just do it a little bit more slowly over time. Or maybe it's finding a publisher that's willing to take a swing on us. I don't know.
right. I mean, I've seen projects though that have failed on Kickstarter or haven't reached. I mean, failed. It's like they haven't reached their funding goal for one reason or another, whether or not it's the algorithm or there wasn't enough marketing done or it just didn't hit right. There's a million different reasons, but I've certainly seen, and I can name, probably a handful of projects right now that it was then retooled and came back out and funding was, successful. I mean, I think there was Adventuring Without a Permit was one that I had backed, and I don't think it reached its goal the first time, came back a second time and made its goal. I've seen a few others that were retooled or just didn't hit right at the right moment. And, sometimes stories can be recycled for anthologies or for other things. So
for sure.
I've definitely seen it happen. And what's your favorite board game? That's the other question.
Ooh. There's a couple that it depends. So competitive board game, I really like Small World. That one's pretty fantastic. The idea is that everyone is fighting for territory using different like fantasy races. And there's a lot of complications with it, but you have giants fighting ratmen, fighting necromancers, fighting Amazons, fighting hobbits, and everyone has unique abilities. It's a lot of fun. And there's a lot of strategy to it, so I like that a lot. Cooperatively, I really like Mysterium. So Mysterium is a game where one person is a ghost and the other players are psychic detectives, and the ghost isn't allowed to speak, but is attempting to help the psychic detectives solve the ghost's murder, like who murdered them, what they murdered them with, and where they murdered them. And they do that using these like very cryptic pieces of art that are like visions that could mean fucking anything. So you learn a lot about each other by playing that game, because people will have to do wild interpretations of the visions that you give them. And then classically, like if we're classic board games, it's chess. As much as I try and get away from it, I ultimately am very addicted to chess. And it is the beautiful game, so I will always come back to it. But yeah, those are my picks for board games for sure.
Well, there you go. You heard it here from Wells, the real deal, Thompson. I as a kid, and I think it's because I was like obsessed is probably the right word, with Sherlock Holmes. Like read a lot, watched a lot of Sherlock Holmes, and always wanted to be a great chess player because I associated like Holmes with chess. I think that's where it came from. And I am a terrible chess player. Like I am just not good.
Hey, admitting it is the first step. I'm not great. I'll be the first to admit I'm not very good. But it's the practicing, and it's
the first laptop I ever had that I got in law school. I didn't have one in college. I got one for law school to type up my notes in class because they said that would be helpful. And it had like the computer chess on it, and I routinely lost like to the computer.
So this is very important for both you. No, for both you and for anyone else listening. Don't play chess against a computer. computers are dirty cheaters. They are awful. They are not fun to play against. They don't play chess like humans. It's a broken experience. Don't play chess. Play chess against people. Don't play chess against computers. And also, like, never play chess with something that you can't like slap them across the board if it comes down to it.
Well, I broke that thing. No, I broke that. I broke that laptap.
Oh, I mean, yeah, but who did that really hurt in the long run?
Me. It hurt me. I needed that.
That's what I'm saying.
I needed it, and I heard it.
Yeah.
So
no, you need, like, chess is one of those games. It's only good if you have a respect for the person you're playing with, and you can look them in the eye and go, that was really cool. That was really good that you did there. Like, you beat me fair and square. That was great. Whereas if you're playing someone, you know, I think online play is just fine, but there are also these kids that will like spam message you the entire time and trash talk you, and like, what's the point? You know, it doesn't feel fun anymore. Anyway, that's my rant. Yeah, play with people. Play with people, preferably that you know. Like, go to a chess club and meet someone and have a good time and get to know them over the chessboard. That's where the game comes alive. Maybe
I'll try again. My 10-year-old Charlotte has a chessboard and has recently gotten into playing chess.
Oh yeah, play with Charlotte. So she'll probably whip your ass.
Like, she has. She already has.
Good. Yeah. Kids are good and they get good quick.
Yeah. Her grandfather like made her a chessboard, and then my wife 3D printed the pieces.
Oh hell yeah!
For it, and it's really cool looking. I'm still bad at chess. So
yeah, no, and that's fine. Most people are bad at chess. The vast majority of people are bad at chess.
I know, but I wanted to be good.
Oh well, I practice, man. There's courses. You don't get good by not playing. You get good by playing. Stop losing a lot.
Stop making sense. Not making sense. So what do you really want? Right, real quick, we have another comment. Ace said, "Can I get a hell yeah for trans rights?" And sure, hell yeah, I'll do that.
Hell yeah,
I'll do that. Rights. I get a hell yeah, absolutely.
Quick story. We had a tiny COVID wedding, and like less than 40 people there, including staff. And two of them were our officiant, who is our good friend Bovie, who is non-binary and backs every campaign, and I love them to death. And they brought their girlfriend Violet, who is trans and extremely tall. Violet caught the bouquet at our wedding, and this broke my wife's grandparents' brain. They did not know how to handle it. And they asked, is that a boy or a girl? I can't tell. And her other set of grandparents said, I don't know, and I don't care, and frankly, it's none of your business. And so trans rights forever. That's all I have to say about that.
All right. Well, this has been Comic Book Yeti Live Wedding Talk with Wells Thompson. And
that's why we stand Nana. Nana's the best.
Yeah, we like Nana. So is that it? It's like we like one side of the grandparents. And the other side
no. One side is great, and the other side we don't talk to anymore.
Yeah, that's how it works. Isn't family wonderful?
No, it's so good.
Family is awesome.
But we still talk to Bovie and Violet. So who won out in the end?
Well, yeah, I mean that's it. I grew up in a family, and sometimes it was always like, well, family first, and this and that. And it's like some of you folks are terrible. Like,
yeah, I gotta say,
I think some of you are bad. I'd rather be with people who are not bad.
I stand.
Ace says, I stand Nana. Yeah, we all stand Nana.
We all stand Nana.
God bless Nana. So what else? What do you really want folks to know about depths? Like when they're getting into it, like what do you hope that they take away from it? Anything? Or are you the type of writer that's like, look, I'm not putting anything out there in terms of what I hope people take away. Like I've done it.
No,
you can interpret it. You make it yours.
Crazy. I project like crazy.
What'd
At the end of the day, I said I project like crazy. I want, like, okay. I have an agenda. I have a message, 100%.
Uh-huh.
No, I do believe that authorship is shared to an extent. Once the book is out there, it's not mine anymore. Right now, it's mine. It's not out there yet.
Yes. It's
So yeah, no. What I want people to take away from it is ultimately very life affirming. That things can be bleak and hard and still worth it. This a Mill's journey is not one that is easy and not one that is, easy to get through. Frankly, there are moments that give me chills, and that hit really, really close to home. And at the same time, by the end, I'm bawling like a baby, not because it's sad, but because it's beautiful. It's one of those things I want people to walk away from and feel like they really connected with it, and that it gives them that little edge that they need to make the most out of their lives.
right.
Which is a lofty and ambitious goal. And if the end of the day, if the only thing people get out of it was that was an entertaining story, that's fine too. I don't mind. But yeah, I do think that there's something special to this story, and that someone somewhere needs to hear it. So yeah, that's where I'm at as far as depths goes.
Depth goes. No, I think those types of things are important. I mean, it's clear that this is a story that is, deeply personal to both you and Dalton. And I think writing partnerships. I mean, we've seen a lot. At least I've seen. I won't speak for everyone in the world on the internet. I have seen, certain writers work with certain artists over and over again. You develop that that sense of collaboration. You kind of develop a shorthand with someone. I think in a lot of different areas or medium, writing partnerships I think are becoming rarer. I don't know if that's true. I had heard on a different a podcast, shout out to high school friend Patrick Flynn and his original cast pod, talking about like writing collaborations in terms of musicals. And I just think that I don't think there are too many in terms of like folks working together, co-writing. And I think the two of you work so well together, or at least you must, because the finished product is so good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's not a lot of people doing what we do, which is interesting. And I don't know if it's an ego thing or what the deal is. And even when you get, I'm trying to figure, there we go. Yeah, I even when you get like writing partners like on Sea of Stars, Jason Aaron and Dennis Hallam write that. And I was like, oh, cool. That's an example of like a writing partner. And then I met Dennis Hallam, and absolutely that's true.
Yeah. Ace with it. That's great.
Family first? Absolutely not. The comic shop pal with the best Rex first? Yes, 100% absolutely. I met Dennis Hallam at Dragon Con, and he sort of was telling the story of how he wrote Sea of Stars with Jason Aaron, and they were basically writing separate stories. Like they were interacting a little bit, but they were like, one was writing the dad's story, one was writing the kid's story, and they didn't really come together until the stories came together at like the very end.
Really?
And it was like,
I love that
wow,
comic. That's fascinating. I would never have guessed that.
Yeah, so it wasn't even like I'm sure they had an editor kind of roping it together and making it sound cohesive, but but yeah, there's not a lot of people who do what me and Dalton do, which is kind of working on it together in tandem until we get to the point we don't even know who came up with what. We have the broad strokes. I know the ideas that Dalton came up with in like the very abstract, and I know so I can tell you for sure that like Grace Martin is a character in Depths that was there in the first draft, but she was there for a scene and then she was never seen again. And it was my idea to be like, no, she needs to come back. She's a bigger part of the story. But then after that, like, how her, character developed and how she wound up really like impacting the plot, aside from just being in it more. I don't know whose idea, it was to come up with what. This is very much our story in just about every sense. And I really love that about our work, and I really love that about comics as as a medium, is that collaboration is sort of built in. And I feel like ego gets in the way a lot, where people will, take a little bit too much ownership over one thing or another. They'll say, or maybe that's readers doing that, and I'm just reading too much into it. I don't know, but they'll say, this is Chip Zdarsky's book. This is, Ram V's book, and I'm like, Ram V didn't draw it. Someone had input into it aside from just the words on the page. Otherwise, we would be reading a screenplay, and reading screenplays are boring.
Yeah, it's a visual medium.
They're not riveting. Yeah, it's a visual medium on purpose.
As Cabbage tells me.
Yeah, they have that. I think they have that tattooed on their forehead, so that every time you see them,
they might.
you remember. Oh yeah,
right.
I'm an idiot.
I get it now. It's a visual medium. Comics is. Well, Wells. Before I let you go, I have a lightning round. I'll come up with a better name. I've just made it up on the spot, where I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions, and we're going to go. You ready? Mm-hmm. I'm looking at something off to my left, but I didn't even write anything down. I'm just making this up as I go. All right.
Believe you. All right.
Last comic you read that you really want to recommend to somebody?
Plume by Kaylin Smith. It's a Western. It's a supernatural Western about a girl who has an amulet containing the soul of an ancient person bound to it that acts as her guardian angel, and she's out to get revenge. It's fantastic. It's beautifully acted. It has a lot of charm and wit, and it's just great. Anyway. Current TV show that really makes you laugh. Ooh, that really makes me laugh.
Yes. Looking for a comedy.
I'm not. Oh my god, I'm watching.
Don't say Dr. Pimple Popper again.
I was gonna say Succession, but that's not a knee slapper at all.
And don't say something sad to be edgy,
subversive. Yeah, no.
It's reruns of Night Court.
It's a lot. There's a lot of Bob's Burgers going on in our house. So pretty much and that's been that way since I met my wife 7 years ago. So I don't know if it's an original answer, but it's the one that I have. That's the comedy.
All right.
That's the comedy right now.
That's fine. Bob's Burgers. Movie that never fails to make you cry.
Movie that never fails to make me cry.
Yes.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, that's a good pick.
It hurts me so bad. I bawl like a baby at the end of that movie.
And who's your favorite other writer other than yourself? You can't pick you at Comic Book Yeti.
My favorite writer at Comic Book Yeti, like a reviewer or
just a person there. I don't know. Like when you go into the office, who is your favorite?
Oh, we have an office? You've been holding out on me?
You haven't been there in months.
Okay. All right. I've been busy. I've been going through a lot.
What have you been doing? Writing? Nerd.
Among other things.
Why is he bullying his guests?
I live in Chicago, and so does Alex Breen, and we met up and have been hanging out. So I'm going to go with him. I really like Alex.
All right. I like really Alex too.
Yeah. He's a great
Alex
guy.
is a good pick. As long as you didn't pick Grant Stoy.
Yeah, fuck Grant Stoy.
Whoa, hey. My kids are going to listen. All right. Well, now we come to the part of the show where I am going to read Matt Ligeti's old live journal.
Please.
And yeah, I was able to dig this up on the internet, and I'm very excited. Should I share the screen so everybody can see it too as I read the thoughts of one Matt Ligeti?
I think so. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
This looks like from sometime in early 2007. What was Matt Ligeti thinking in early 2007? I bet
it's just a workshop of puns, trying to figure out what works best.
It isn't. Honestly, I've combed through it. There's hardly any puns. I think the pun his punsanality was developed later. Huh?
I don't like that at all.
Me
I don't
neither.
even remotely like that.
I'm gonna reprimand myself later. All right. So here we go. And it's all right. All right. This is from March 6th of 2007. Again, Matt Ligeti's old live journal. And unfortunately, I just got the signal that it's time to wrap up. Sorry, my producers are saying we don't have enough time. So next Yeti live event, I will start with Matt's live journal reading, as long as it's okay with our guest. But Wells, the real deal Thompson, thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate you. And I really appreciate your comics and your candor. And it's always a blast chatting with you.
Yeah, no, it's always great to be on. And I appreciate you having me back on and tolerating me in all walks of life and aspects. Because I am not the easiest person to tolerate all the time.
That's true. I agree with that. I agree. Hard agree.
You're like, it's a nightmare working with you.
Yeah,
Agreed.
It was really bad. It's why I stopped reviewing, because I'm like, I can't work for Wells. I can't do it. I'm an old man, and he hurts my feelings.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm very sensitive.
That's fair.
I can't do it. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening, checking this out. Hopefully, you'll find it at some point during the month of May, when the campaign for Depths is still going, and you will back it and share it and make sure that it reaches its funding goal, because this is an ambitious project. It's a deeply personal story for Wells and Dalton. It sounds fantastic, with a great creative team, Jay, Rajesh, and Nathan. And yeah, thanks a lot, Wells. I really appreciate it. And for Comic Book Yeti, so you've been a Yeti live event, Jimmy Gasparo, and thanks for being here with us. This has been a lot of fun. I'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.